Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo Podcast. I am Joey Calvo. Please continue to help the victims of the California wildfires. They do need our help as they're rebuilding their lives. So reach out to them. Anything will help. And so today I have the truly beautiful Isabella Young. And about 16 years ago, give me one moment here. Here we go. About 16 years ago, she escaped from a messianic cult after her son was murdered to prevent the cult leader, who's her ex-husband, from being exposed as a pedophile, rapist, and conman. Once escaped, she focused on spending time in nature, expanding her consciousness, and healing emotional wounds, learning about cults and mind control, and feeling her mind from cult program. So, Isabella, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be a guest on your podcast. I'm looking forward to sharing my experiences with you and your audience.
Okay. So explain to me how this all happened, what led to where we're at.
Well, in regards to the cult experience, most people don't join a cult. It's usually happens when we go to participate in a group, and then it turns out that group is operating as a cult, and that's what happened to me. And also the idea that only certain people can get caught up in cults because it's got to do with intellectual abilities or not is not true. It's really how we get caught up in cults is due to emotional wounding. And for me, I grew up in a family that my mother had a narcissistic personality disorder. She was an alcoholic, and she really, she didn't love me unconditionally. And so that set me on this trajectory of looking for love outside myself. Mm-hmm. And I went through an experience where I was in a marriage with a really beautiful man, and I was 3 months pregnant with our second child, and he went to work one day, and I got a knock on the door about 10 o'clock in the morning from the local policeman and a neighbor to tell me that he died suddenly. So that left me wanting to die, and that also left me, I couldn't live where we were living. We were on a farm, and it was chop wood, carry water type of thing. So I had to go on a search really to find a new place to call home, and also I had to get through my death wish because I really just wanted to die too. And so being in this vulnerable state, I met a man who was presenting himself as a spiritual teacher. And he also told me that he was my guru. That's the main spiritual teacher, and that he was the one who was going to be able to lead me, guide me, and help me fulfill my purpose here on earth. So I was living in Australia at the time, and I moved to the United States, where I began living with him. We got married fairly quickly, and I also got pregnant with his child. And so I got trapped into this situation where he was he had basically a group of disciples around him. He believed he's the second coming, the Maitreya, the Kalki avatar, the one to save humanity, and all his disciples were here to help him with his mission. So I was hooked into that because I had a child, and also because I believed he was going to be able to help me heal and move forward with my life. But it was just hell on earth. And he has a narcissistic personality disorder, and he controlled everyone's everything, from all our what we ate, how much we slept, what we did with our time. And basically that was all to focus on him and getting his needs met. And that went on for 7 years. And then one day my son came home from school, and he was really upset, and he didn't want to talk about it. So I said, we'll talk about it in the morning, just go to bed. And the next morning he was gone. And I knew there was a problem straight away. We called around all his friends and went looking for him. The next day we reported him, not the next day, that afternoon reported him missing. to the police, and the next morning the cult leader sent out one of his assistants to look for him, and he found him behind the house, and he had a fatal neck wound, and that was immediately blamed on me, that I hadn't given him the life that he wanted, that he'd found out he was gay, and that was unacceptable to me, and just all these heinous lies. So that was, once again, I wanted to die. I wanted out. And but I had children, so I had to keep breathing and keep living. But I knew I needed help. So I went to see this guy who'd been the cult counselor for many years. I didn't see him during the time because I was pretty disobedient, actually. Okay. And he said to me when I walked in the door, he goes, "You know you're in a cult, don't you?" And I said, "No, I didn't know I was in a cult. I thought I was in an ashram with my guru." And he said, "Go home and Google cult characteristics." So I went home, and there's a list of charismatic leader who's the arbitrator of truth, who controls everyone's everything, you know, who you in a relationship with, whether you're having sex or not, whether you're vegan, you know. And also he uses practices like brainwashing, like repetition of names, and gaslighting, where it's basically to make you feel like you're going crazy, like you had a conversation that you never had, or you said something you didn't have. That was just everyday standard practice, the gaslighting. So I realized I was in a cult. And then I needed to get out. And I didn't have the support of my family, although they'd known I was in a cult from pretty much the year one. But no one said anything. And just to let people know that if someone's in a cult, it's good to let them know, because that's one of the ways the cult functions, is so you don't realize you're in a cult, or the whole thing's treated as a joke. So I had to get out, and he wasn't going to let me leave because we actually shared a child, and legally I couldn't move within 2 hours of where he was living. And also he was holding it over me spiritually, saying if I left him, I'd basically be turning my back on God and myself, my soul. But I've thought about this a lot, and I think he finally let me go because he knew he was going to have another death on his hands, and he didn't need that attention. And I only found out, so I got out, I came to Hawaii, and that's when I started my healing journey and understanding what had happened. And it was only later that I found out, because of some other young boys in the cult came forward and said how they'd been groomed and sexually abused. And I realized that was what was happening to my son. And I realized actually, you know, what was really going on for me, how I got caught up in this situation because of my emotional wounding, my need to feel love and appreciated outside of myself, because I wasn't feeling that love for myself. And it's been a long journey to get to that point where now I do love myself. I'm working on forgiveness and letting go of guilt, and how I've done most of my healing and expanding my consciousness is by spending time in nature, staying grounded, skin to earth, and practicing sun gazing every day, letting the light of the sun come in through my eyes into my brain, expanding my consciousness. And that's given me a bigger and bigger perspective. So now I can see how those same tactics that are used by a cult leader are used on society as a whole, how we are controlled, how we're brainwashed, mind controlled, and you know, there are psyops going on all the time, and gaslighting and all that. So my experience of being in a cult enabled me to then see cults everywhere, really. How cults are, you know, you can have cults in families, which I had. You can have cults in multi-level marketing or political parties, sports teams, world championship wrestling. You know, cults are everywhere, really. And without the knowledge of the prevalence of cults, it's really easy to get caught up in cult programming and mind control.
Okay. And how old was your son when this all happened?
15.
15. Okay.
Yeah.
So he was starting to find out his sexuality, or as was told to you, and the
cult leaders' MO is, especially just for the male cult members, is to suggest that they explore their sexuality with him. And basically what he does, and he's still doing it, he's having sexual relationships with the male cult members. He's got a sex addiction, so he's on Tinder and Grindr and all that,
right?
Having hookups. And, of course, my son, being a young boy was a prime target for him. But my son, that's the reason why my son was taken out, because he knew what was going on. He could see what was happening, and he fought back.
Okay.
And he was going to expose him. So yeah.
Okay. And so when they came and told you that your son had passed, I know this is not a type of question that's normally asked about it in reference to it. How did they say that it happened?
They said he committed suicide by cutting his neck with a kitchen knife that was not even sharp enough to cut a tomato. So yeah, it was suicide.
Yeah, I mean, I apologize that I had to ask that, because to get an idea of what was going on at the time, and like when you found out, how did you find out? What was the in reference to that?
It's okay.
And in reference to the in reference to your story, I mean, I feel that I had the same thing, except it wasn't. Well, who knows? For all I know, but my ex-wife had cheated on me, and I was feeling the same way you were feeling, not feeling loved, and so on. And I mean, I wound up making a mistake that cost me not only 10 weeks and 2 months of my life, but it cost me 10 years on top of that. And I do thank God that it wasn't any worse to what happened with you and your son, and what you had to go through.
I'm so sorry that it happened. Those wounds of betrayal are extremely painful, and we all have our own our own wounds that are do affect our lives for years and years and years.
Yeah. And because of that, I will never, I mean, people will tell me, oh yeah, forgive yourself. You can forgive yourself. No, I can't, because what happened caused so much damage that I kind of, how can I say it this way? It's now a border. It's like it's like a piece. It's like the wall. It's like a wall now. So like anytime I want to do something in my life to attempt to do better, this wall will pop up, because it's like, if I, if I'm really interested in the person, and it gets to a point where they want to go further, I would wind up telling this to them, because I like to be a transparent person, and not hide. I get tired of hiding things, because it, back then, there wasn't Google to, search, well, I mean, Google was there, but I mean, it was still kind of new, but, finding out what happened back then, in reference to it. I mean, it did happen like when Google was around, but in reference to, where you're standing at, in reference to the forgiveness and the self-love and so on. I mean, do I feel like God forgave me? Yes, I do. But the thing is did Joey forgive Joey for it? No, and he never will, because of the damage that was done because of it. I mean, I lost a lot out of that. So, like I said, I mean, you had a bigger sacrifice losing your son, you know, and that, I mean, I was lucky. I wasn't, we didn't have any kids when this happened, but it was just not, I mean, it was hard to deal with, of course. I mean, I still deal with it, even though I can walk by, I can walk through life and, you know, put up the front that I'm okay, but deep down I'm really not, and I never will be because of that. So,
I think it's important not to start to put those hard endings on the like you never will be, because things can, we change over time. We do. And I've heard it said, if you can't forgive yourself for not being able to forgive yourself, and be gentle with the process. And remember that no one's a victim. No one.
Yeah.
So just go easy on yourself, because you know your intentions.
Yeah.
You know your heart.
Yeah.
You know what sort of a person you are, right? So that's a reason to love yourself and be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, but like I said, at the same time, if I get too close, I bring up that, then I'm like, you know what? Let me get out before it gets worse.
Right, because you're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And it is a risk. It is a risk to open up to another person.
Yeah.
Open your heart, because you are at risk of being hurt.
Yeah.
Everybody is. And that, I think that's the thing about love, is it does take a lot of courage and a lot of risks, because we do put ourselves on the line there.
Right.
And it can hurt like hell for a long time. So I decided I would take a chance again.
Yeah.
Keep take a chance.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you're truly beautiful yourself. I mean, I feel so bad because, when I read the story, I was like, oh my God, this is something up my alley, and I normally don't express it on this podcast. So, in reference to what happened, but when I read it, I was like, oh boy, how am I going to manage this, without going to the extremes in reference to it. So, but, like I said, when we do these podcasts, I do everything in a conversation form, so that way it's a little bit easier on both, the guest and the interviewer. And, and then, if anything is not brought up, it would be brought up later on, off camera, to that way to solidify why this was happening. I mean, I found out in 2009 that I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression after this all happened. I mean, I was going through therapists before that, but because of what was going on with my marriage and everything is what led this to go way out of control at the time. And like I said, in reference to it, I mean, did I learn my lesson? Yes. Do I have what I need to get through that? Yes. But the thing is, everybody even says, like you even said just now, I need to loosen up on me. I don't. I really don't. I will turn around, and as soon as I find one thing, I will attack it. And as I attack it, I'll tighten the grip on it to where I don't get up out of it, because, I'm not, it's kind of my behavior, for not just what happened, but for everything that happened before that. Because in school, and some of my classmates will say, "Oh, no, you weren't. We didn't pick on you. We didn't put you down." You actually did, because of the words you used. I mean, I never felt like I was accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have a suicide attempt, but it wasn't I can't say it's the suicide attempt that, not many people would say happened. But what happened was, I had just met this person, and there's some complications to it. And so what happened was, I had this nice place, and I met someone else, and that person took advantage of me to the point where I fell behind on the rent, and I was losing this place. It was a nice place. I mean, if I didn't screw up then, I probably would still be living in this place. I mean, and I had 3 cats. I was somewhat okay, except within myself, of course. So I was walking over the South Street Bridge here in Philadelphia, looking at the Schuylkill River, and I just started looking. And I said, "You know what? I'm done." And as I was looking at the river, I was like, "Yeah, I'm done." I said, I can't get myself out of this one. But the person I had met, her voice came in the background and literally said, I worry about you. I would be concerned if I never saw you again.
Mm-hmm.
And that stopped it right there. I mean, I'm not saying I don't feel love now. But that day started it. And as time had gone on, I felt the love that's preventing me from wanting to do another, something else. But it's, like I said, the love within myself, I will never trust or even, work with, because if I do, I have a habit of sabotaging myself with it. I will find something and go at it with it. So,
well, it's good you're aware of the ways that you're operating.
Mm-hmm.
That that you sabotage, and that's an important step, to be able to recognize behavior patterns, thought patterns, because I know what really helped me was I had to really change my thought patterns about myself, because I was really critical and judgmental, and I had to change the way I think, actually really like I was my thought police. So a thought would arise, and this was also along the suicidal lines, because I didn't want to be here. There's too much pain and grief. Yeah. And I knew that if I continued to entertain that thought, that I was going to take myself out. So I had to stop it and redirect it to something else. Just really seriously change the thought pattern, or you can call it a thought train or whatever, because it can easily get momentum, and then it's got a whole life of its own. So what I do is I police my thoughts as they come up. Like, is this a thought I really want to be thinking about myself or a situation, whatever? And if it is, then I can continue on with it. And if it's not, change it to something else, or just, get into neutral thinking. It's really, it takes that level of work to heal and recover from those, the life traumas, really, where it, and then the other thing I just want to add in, that the way I've built self-love, besides repeating I love myself ad infinitum for years, was to spend time outdoors in nature and just relaxing and receiving the energy from the earth by lying on the earth, or being out in the sun, and just because that's love. We actually, we live in a field of love, and there's also not love as well, but nature itself is love. So by being outdoors in the forest, by the ocean, by a river, whatever, we can open and receive that love. It's just simple. Just relax and be aware that that's what you're receiving, and then give thanks and go about it. And it really helps. I know it sounds simple and tried or whatever, but it's been the most powerful practice for me in this healing journey.
Yeah. Before we get to the question that Rob posted on here, I do want to say I will go sit outside once in a while, like if it's cooler out, temperature wise, or I love going down Atlantic City in New Jersey, and walking on the beach sometimes. And when you walk on the beach, you have the thoughts, of enjoying, nature in that way. But at the same time, that you have that, I will turn around and, like really wish somebody was there with me to enjoy it with. So that was the other heartbreak to me, is because, I'm not saying, that I can't enjoy nature. I mean, I do. But when I do, I don't want to be alone, because it's like, like I said, in reference to the sabotage, why should I even bother, in reference to it. But when I do, like, go out, and sometimes it may wind up being late at night, because that's, most of the time when things are okay, and kind of feel safe for me in reference to it. But again, like I said, when I do want to do that stuff, it's like I just don't want to be alone, because if I'm alone, then I'm like, still feeling like I'm that person that I mentioned earlier. So Rob had a question for you. Why do you think people are so strongly attracted to cults?
Well, thanks, Rob. Thanks for watching, and thank you for your question. For my understanding is that people want to belong, want to feel that they belong in a group, that they're part of a group, and they've got like-minded people around them, and they can share a vision, share goals, and like work together, live together, and be together. It's that, we are social beings. So I think people are looking for that sense of, well, where do I belong? Where's my people? Where's my tribe or whatever? And so we'll enter into groups that can, actually be cults.
Because thank God, my thing wasn't a cult related thing. It was just, a personal relationship type. Now, in reference to with yours, and in reference to your ex-husband being a leader of this cult, and also you were the real question is, why didn't you really expose him for who he was?
I am exposing him.
Okay.
I have a section on my YouTube channel called "The Cult in the Cul-de-Sac: A True Crime," where I've spoken about my experiences in the cult, and I've also compared him to other cult leaders. Contrast and compare. And there are other ex-cult members around the world. There's a couple in Australia, and we are speaking out about him. The difference with this cult, what I'm finding is, so that how cult leaders get exposed is ex-cult members will speak out, to be the whistleblowers, then other cult members will join in, and it creates some attention. and some focus on the cult leader, and they'll be exposed that way. What I'm finding about this cult is people, so I'm 16 years down having escaped, and it's taken me, it took me 15 years at least to be speaking about it after doing a lot of work on my own healing, and people are so traumatized that most people are still in their healing phase and not ready to speak out about it yet. And the other truth of it is that the men in the cult are so traumatized because they were mind raped and raped. So they're so full of shame. They don't want to be talking about what happened to them. So they'd rather just be, let it be and get on with their lives. I know that personally because I've spoken to some of the men like, hey, can you come on my podcast? And there's like, no, we don't want to dredge. We don't want to bring up the past, even though this guy's still operating, still lying and stealing and raping and, just destroying people's lives. The cult members are so traumatized by their experience that they're not ready to speak up about it. So yeah, I am. I'm not going to put all my effort into exposing him because I would rather do other things, enjoy my life. But I am putting some, here I am now. So when I'm talking about on the podcast, I do talk about who he is and that in fact he's still operating.
Okay.
And I'm not hiding my truth, so we won't be able to get him on a murder charge because the body, my son's body's been cremated, and the people who were witnesses are now old and they don't trust their memories and stuff like that. So he gets his consequences every day. He has to wake up and face himself. He has to continue with his lies and manipulations and fulfilling his sex addiction. So he's living in hell, and I'm free.
And Rob turned around and said, absolutely, society is so isolating. Wonderful to feel part of something like that, like unconditional acceptance. I mean, I'm feeling that as well, but I'm at the point where people I'm going to say it this way. People that quote unquote care about me, I'm literally pushing them away because I'm like, you don't want to really be around me because I could do something that could jeopardize, or I feel like I could jeopardize something. And
you're so hard on yourself.
Yeah. So I like to be that. I've gotten, between that and like I said, when I was put down in school and stuff, I always felt like even through that, I was the outside person looking in. So I got to the point to why should I bother even wanting to be in? I'd rather be that outside person looking in. And that's, like I said, and then those that, care and really, put their heart into, wanting to be with me, I wind up pushing them away because I wind up either I'm afraid that I may do something that's going to make, that's going to hurt them, like what you went through, in your life, or it's, or something within that range to where, I'm just going to be like, you don't want to be with me,
I think you've punished yourself enough already.
That's what everybody tells me.
You have. You've punished yourself enough. Like, when's going to be enough? I know that I was punishing myself, that, I felt guilt. So even after I left in the cult, I got into relationships with other narcissists who treated me like shit. Yeah. Until I finally decided, no, I don't, I've suffered enough. I've made enough restitution. Now it's time for some ease and some peace and some love. And what I had to do was just forge a unshakable connection between me and God, and not in a religious sense, but just as knowing that I have a higher aspect of me, and that's with me, guiding me, leading me, supporting me, and so I don't feel alone. Even when I'm by myself, I know that there are a host of non-physical beings who are around me, including my son and my first husband and friends who passed on. So I have their love and support.
Yeah.
And that's more than enough.
Yeah.
To let that love in, because that love's infinite. That divine love's infinite. And I think one of the things that we do everyone does it to sabotage themselves, is not to let that love in, because if we actually let it in fully, we'd probably like implode, because it's infinite love. So it is important to take time to feel loved.
Yeah.
Even if it's not by another human by our side, but we are loved.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like I said, in reference to God, I mean, I feel that love, but like I said, it's in reference to within my own self. I mean, like I said, with the people that are there, that care. I mean, I've had some that say they care, and they'll turn around and tell me what to do with my actual life. So any decision I would make was wrong. And that really made me feel like, why bother? Because, it's like, it was like I was going through the whole thing all over again, and but one thing I will say out of that is those people that were telling me, oh, you got to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. No, you can't do this. No, you can't have a glass of wine. You have to have this drink. I was like, bye. I actually did take steps, and I literally pushed them out.
Mm-hmm.
But as I pushed them out, the damage that was there, including my own, was done. Like I said, to the point where I get harder on me in reference to, sabotaging. Like I said, instead of lightening myself up, I'm putting the pressure on it and say, you're not getting out of this one. You're gonna really be done for this. I mean, like I said, there are two people right now that really want to see me smile. They really want to see me positive. They want to see this out of me and this out of me and this out of me. And, even with this podcast, they feel that I should be smiling and being, like, enjoy. But when I do think, when people think I'm actually feeling it, I'm really not. And it's because of that squeeze, that little pressure gauge I put on me, in reference to that. I mean, I'm, like I said, it's not that I'm not feeling loved by God. It's not like I'm not feeling loved by people. It's the love within my own self that is destroyed, and that's how I look at it. And I'm not saying what you're suggesting of the self-love is. I actually now have someone that reminds me that when people give advice, I won't take it. And the reason why I don't take it it's not because of the person itself. It's because I built that destructive, direction to the point where I took the key and threw it away. I literally tossed the key to it. And, like I said, there are people that think I could do better and be better. And when I said, when they feel like I can, I really don't, because of what happened back then. And like I said, in reference to the loosening of the grip, I'll never do that because of what I instilled in myself in reference to, what led to why this was all happening. In reference to, like right now, this person would probably get to me right now to, get on my case. And like, this is supposed to be about the guest, not you. And that's the other thing, is when I get that constructive criticism, I turn around and, it's like the grip gets tighter because I'm letting it happen. So
you have all the power. I'm just hearing you speak about how you have all the power. And so if you've got all the power to lock the door and throw away the key or whatever, then you've also got the power to unlock the door. You've got all that power. You're the one that has to decide how do you want to go? Do you want to keep on beating yourself up, or do you want to enjoy your life?
Yeah.
And then be like solid in that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I decided about my whole cult experience was I wasn't going to. He'd already like destroyed my life. I already gave him 8 years of my life and a child. I wasn't going to give him any more time. I wasn't going to let him impact my daily, me going about my day any longer. And that was another reason why I didn't speak out for ages, because I just didn't want to give it anymore. I wasn't going to give him that power over me anymore.
Right.
And the truth is, the past is the past.
Yeah.
It really is. There's nothing we can do about it now to change it. It's all we have is this now moment. Yeah. And how do you want to spend your life? Do you want to spend your life like beating yourself up into a pulp, or do you want to go easy and have a bit more like ease and grace? And so then choose things that you like to do, even the simplest things, whether that is just going and sitting on the back steps and watching the clouds. Just find whatever, or listening to some music or cooking some food. Do things that bring you joy or peace or, good feelings, and do them often. It's the simplest things.
Yeah. I mean, in reference to that, I mean, I do it on a daily basis in reference to it. I mean, but I don't put it in the perspective of joy. I just put it in the perspective of it just like it's either too hot in the house or something else. I mean, when I was going through the therapies and stuff, I turned around and I told a psychiatrist that I did this podcast, and the psychiatrist literally turned around and said, "This is your therapy." Yeah. And I took one look at him in the beginning. I'm like, "What did you just say?" And he's like, "Yeah, your podcast is your therapy, because when you do them, you're bringing things out. And I caught on to that. I caught that. And like I said, in reference to the two people in particular that are I would say are really important to me, but at the same time, I got too close to it in reference to it. I mean, and as I got too close is when, the sabotaging would begin. And in reference to one in particular, I mean, that person will do whatever possible to say, "Hey, I'm here. You're not getting rid of me." I already have one that says that. The other one will let me go. And then it's like when I shut that door, how I feel about it is God's not letting that door shut on me, because God keeps telling me this person really needs to be in my life in one way or another. But I'm the one that wants to shut the door, because like I said before, I'm afraid of doing something that could damage it. So, like you said before, I'm protecting myself on it. Even
Well,
though
I was just going to say how I've come to understand intuition and divine guidance, or, hearing instructions or whatever it is. I've found that it's best that I follow that, even if it's not something that I necessarily want to do or looks like it's going to be fabulous or whatever. It's important to follow that divine guidance, because that's what's best for our soul. Mm-hmm. And if we ignore that, it ends up getting worse, because the instructions or whatever will just get louder and louder, and they can often then, in order to make us change course or whatever, it can manifest as physical illnesses and mental illnesses. Right. So for me in my life, if I feel that there's some step I need to take, person I need to speak to, way I need to, behave, then I do that. And that in turn strengthens my intuition and my connection to my higher self, so that, then I am in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. But on that guidance thing, it's best to follow it.
Yeah. I mean, I've attempted to, like you said, it getting louder and louder. I've attempted to, follow it. But like I said, as I've been following it, or I think I'm following it, I'll sabotage it. Somehow I will find something and I will go at it with it.
Then catch yourself. As soon as you realize, I'm sabotaging you, just have to you have to be your own thought police, behavior police, and that's the way out. It's just
I mean, and I do catch myself. And then when I do catch myself, I'm like, you know what? I better get out of here totally. Because if I don't, I'm going to let it continue on, and, it's going to, get worse. And that's, like I said, that's in reference to the current person right now, who really, this person wants to be in my life. I believe this person really wants to be in my life, and and explains it so many times to me. And as they're explaining it to me, they have their own wall they're throwing up too, at the same time. So it's like, okay, you want me to be part of it, but at the same time, you throw this up because, I mean, yes, you want me to understand it. And so it's like, well, if you're throwing that up, then why should I bother? If you're going to remind me about that wall as much as I'm reminding you about mine. I mean, does this person in particular that I'm talking about right now in reference to care about me? Yes. But I question sometimes, because if they really, and this is what I even say about friends, quote unquote. Yes, I like to have physical time with friends. Okay. And yes, if you saying, I'm just putting you as a scenario in reference to this, saying you came down to Atlantic City and you decided you wanted to spend some time with me. Okay. Yes, you would get me away from what I really do down there, but I'd rather be happy that that's happening, because when I'm by myself, I'll do what I'm doing, and, I may get a thrill out of it. And, most people, when I talk about that thrill, they're like, you need to get away from it and walk away with it and go on. But when that thrill comes, it's like you want another one and another one, and I get greedy. It's like an addiction. It becomes an addiction. So, so that's why it winds up. But do I blame myself for that addiction part? No, I won't. I won't attack myself for that, because that I know is my safe zone, that I call it. So, so Rob, thank you for your questions. So, in reference to, we have a few minutes left. Talk about feeling better. How you started feeling better naturally. Love.
Well, one part of my healing journey included writing, and I've written a couple of books, Putting on the Armor of God, and my latest one is New Human of New Earth.
Okay. All right.
And in addition to writing and publishing books, this has got hundreds of natural medicines to improve physical and mental health, as well as body technologies and spiritual technologies, all to optimize health and well-being. That's available on Amazon and through my website.
Okay.
And then my website is really my artwork, my other writings, my books, and my videos. So it's really a place to find my work.
Okay.
And that's my website. And then I have my YouTube channel, Feeling Better Naturally.love, which has been mostly just images from nature, because even if we can't get outside to get in nature, there are ways that we can bring nature indoors, including having plants and playing nature sounds, because we're human beings. We have an animal body, and there's no way we can experience mental and physical health without a connection to nature. In fact, being disconnected to nature is what makes most people sick, and what's made us really sick as a collective. So I bring nature indoors. It can play, like I said, play nature sounds, falling water, bird songs, whatever it is, and that can help the body calm down, and with grounding helps us to be balanced again. Also, you can diffuse essential oils, and even pictures of nature can help us feel better naturally.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, Isabella, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You're welcome to come back on anytime you need to promote anything, or you have something new you want to bring out, or if you feel that you need to bring more out about what happened in your past that you couldn't do on your podcast and stuff. You let me know. We'll bring it out.
Thank you, Joey. I appreciate that.
You're welcome to expose. You're welcome to expose it on here.
Thank you.
I mean, I have a believe it or not, I have a classmate. Her brother is an activist, and I wanted to have him on the podcast, but he literally told me if he came on this podcast, I was dead, because no matter what would happen, they would probably come after me as well as him. So
gosh.
So he kind of, like I said, in reference to that wall, he put that wall up on me to protect me. And I was deep down, I was like, you didn't need to put that wall up. I wanted you on, and just like this person now that I've thrown the wall up on, in reference to me, actually the two people I've thrown the wall up on, they know the wall's there, but they're like, you think that wall's there? You think we're gonna let you we're gonna let you stay away? No, we're not gonna do that. You are a part of our lives. You are going to be there one way or another. And they will even attempt to crack that wall. Some have, we could say they cracked the wall, but they also know that I'll repair it very quickly in reference to it. And they will not let go.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can't say I don't blame them, but at the same time, I mean, I won't blame them, period. But at the same time, I'm like, why are you still here? Why do you want to deal with me? If I can't deal with me, why do you want to deal with me? You know, in reference to that. So definitely, folks, go to feelingbetternaturally.love. Check out her YouTube channel. Subscribe to her YouTube channel. You know, pick up the books. If you reach out to her and you want to share your story with her, please do. Maybe, you know, she might turn around and, you know, work with you and improve your life. I mean, you know, a lot of people would suggest in reference to this, you know, being a work for me. It's not that I don't want the work. It's just that when I attempt to work with something, I get frustrated if I do something wrong. And I let it go right there and then. I give up right then and there because I know I failed at it.
Well, here's my take on that. We don't do wrong things. Everything's a learning opportunity. So if you do something that you can learn from that, and then obviously you're not going to do it again.
Yeah.
So you've learned. And rather than judging yourself for being wrong,
yeah.
you're learning and growing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what those people would want me to do is, you know, stop judging me. But I mean,
yeah,
like I said, I've tightened up that grip so much to the point where I'm not going to let it up.
Oh,
you know, and I mean, yeah, I'm 54 years old, and you know, there are times I still feel like that I really, quote unquote, never grew up. But the reason why I feel like I never grew up is because of how I was raised, what I did during that time, you know, and it got to the point where anything that anybody would attempt to want to do, I'd let it fail because that I would tighten up that grip to make it happen. So, like I said, Isabella, you're welcome to come back on this podcast.
Thanks,
anytime.
Joey.
And I thank you for the time. I apologize that I took some of it away from you in reference to me. And I know I'll get that constructive criticism for it later. But you are still welcome to come on this podcast anytime. Just reach out to me and we'll make it happen.
That's very kind of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching the Life with Joey Calvo YouTube channel. God bless you all.
Thank you. Get outside into nature.
Yeah. Yeah.